the planet Voss. 9 hung in the void like a dying ember. Its surface a storm-torn wasteland of blackened rock and violet sand. The winds howled across the barren expanse, carving deep scars into the land as if nature itself sought to erase any trace of life. Yet life persisted, huddled in hidden places, surviving despite the universe's indifference. It was here, in the shadow of jagged cliffs, that the most dangerous hunt in recent history began. The bounty had been transmitted in the usual way, a coded message sent through encrypted relays, appearing in the neural feeds of those deemed capable of handling the task. A human. That was the target. Simple, unremarkable, hardly worth the attention of the galaxy's deadliest hunters. Yet the payout was obscene, a figure so high that even the most seasoned assassins paused to verify its authenticity. No human, however elusive, could be worth that much. And yet, the contract had been issued by the Galactic Council itself, sealed with the authority of the highest ruling class in the known universe. That alone made it worth the chase. Xyrex was the first to arrive. He crouched on the edge of a rocky outcrop, his slit-pupiled eyes narrowing as he scanned the landscape below. His reptilian skin, patterned with shifting hues of green and black, made him nearly invisible against the stone. A strategist by nature, he preferred to observe before acting. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air for signs of his quarry. The scent was faint, human sweat, laced with something odd, something unnatural. He didn't like mysteries. He liked knowing his prey before the kill. Behind him, a low mechanical were signaled the approach of Corin. The cyborg moved with a smooth, calculated efficiency, his skeletal frame reinforced with alloys that shimmered under the twin moons of Voss 9. A single red optic pulsed within his skull-like helmet, analyzing Xyrex's posture. Corin rarely spoke unless necessary, preferring action over conversation. His weapons were integrated into his body, a fusion of flesh and machine that made him a nightmare in close-quarters combat. A heavy footfall announced the arrival of Varthak, a towering behemoth clad in armor scavenged from the countless warriors he had slain. He carried no ranged weapons. He had never needed them. His kind, the Garath, relied on brute strength and an unbreakable will, traits that had served him well in the blood-soaked arenas of his homeworld. He grunted, peering down at the valley below. "We kill fast. No need for planning." A sigh escaped from the shadows, and Lasara emerged, her form wrapped in a cloak that blended seamlessly with the darkness. She was a phantom, a ghost of 1,000 forgotten battles. Unlike the others, she had no loyalty to the thrill of the hunt, only to the reward at its end. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of unspoken warnings. "You assume it will be easy." Xyrex's eyes flickered toward her, then back to the valley. He had been hunting long enough to know when something didn't add up. The human had left tracks, deliberate, leading toward a narrow canyon flanked by towering rock formations. A perfect place for an ambush. The air tasted wrong, charged with the metallic tang of anticipation. A trap, perhaps, or a mistake. Either way, he did not intend to be caught unaware. "He knows we're coming," Xyrex hissed. Corin tilted his head, processing the data from his sensors. Minimal thermal signature. No advanced weaponry detected. If he's waiting with nothing. Varthak grunted again, unimpressed. "Then we crush him." Lasara said nothing, but she tightened her grip on the hilt of her blade. Something gnawed at the edges of her instincts, an old, familiar warning that whispered of danger, yet unseen. She had hunted creatures across the stars, beings capable of leveling cities with a thought, but never had she felt this sense of unease over a single human. The team descended into the valley, each moving with the practiced silence of seasoned killers. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying loose grains of sand that scraped against their armor and skin. Shadows stretched long in the dim light, twisting and contorting like living things. Then they saw him. A lone figure stood at the far end of the canyon, his back to them, hands at his sides. He was clothed in simple, dust-worn garments, no armor, no visible weapons. The bounty's face was obscured by the low brim of a tattered hood. He did not move as they approached. Zyrex signaled for the others to spread out. Varthak cracked his knuckles, eager to end the hunt before it had truly begun. Corrin's targeting systems locked onto the human's vitals. A single, clean shot would end this. Lysara hesitated. The wind shifted. The human turned his head slightly, just enough to reveal the edge of a scar that ran down the side of his face. Then, in a voice that carried no fear, no hesitation, he spoke. "You should have left." There was no time to react. The world exploded into motion. The moment the words left the human's mouth, the air itself seemed to tighten, charged with something unseen, something primal. For a fraction of a second, the bounty hunters hesitated, not out of fear, but from the sheer, unnatural certainty in his voice. Then, Varthak moved first, as he always did, instinct guiding him toward battle. With a roar that sent tremors through the canyon walls, the towering warrior lunged forward, his massive fists cracking the stone beneath his feet. The human was gone before impact. No, not gone. Moved. Shifted so fast that the ice struggled to track him. He had been standing in front of them, and now he wasn't. Varthak's fists met empty air, and his confusion barely had time to register before something struck his side with the force of a meteor. The impact sent the hulking brute skidding backward, his boots carving deep trenches into the rock. Zyrex reacted next, claws unsheathing as his body flickered into camouflage. His predatory instincts screamed at him. This wasn't normal, wasn't possible. No human moved like that. And yet, his vision scanners found nothing. No heat signature, no flicker of movement. It was as if the prey had ceased to exist. Corrin's cybernetic systems processed the anomaly in nanoseconds. His targeting matrix recalibrated, switching to motion-predictive tracking. A single twitch of his finger sent a plasma bolt slicing through the air, aimed precisely where the human should have been. But he wasn't there. The shot burned a hole in the canyon wall, illuminating the dust swirling in the disturbed air. And then Corrin saw him. A blur, weaving through the dust like a phantom, closing the distance between them with impossible speed. Corrin tried to adjust, to anticipate, but before his servos could compensate, a fist collided with his chest plate. A fist that should not have been able to dent reinforced alloy. Yet Corrin felt the shockwave rattle through his entire frame. Systems flickered, recalibrated, struggled to keep up. Lysara didn't fire. She didn't move. She simply watched, calculating, waiting for the pattern to emerge. Every warrior, no matter how skilled, had a pattern. A tell. A moment of vulnerability. She found none. The human danced between them, slipping through their attacks like water through fingers. A feint that drew Varthak's attention ended with a brutal strike to the back of his knee, sending the massive warrior to one leg. A perfectly timed sidestep turned Corrin's lethal strike into a missed opportunity. Zyrex's claws raked only air, his movements falling short by inches that may as well have been miles. Lysara moved at last. Her blade was already in motion before thought had time to take shape. A whisper of steel, a glint of light. It should have found flesh, should have cut deep. But then nothing. The human's body bent at an unnatural angle, just beyond the reach of her weapon. And for the briefest instant, their eyes met. No fear. No arrogance. Just cold, calculating awareness. Then the moment shattered. The human pivoted, using her own momentum against her, redirecting her strike into the path of Zyrex, forcing the reptilian to twist away or be gutted by his own ally. The efficiency was terrifying. He wasn't just fast. He understood them, read them, anticipated every move before they made it. It was Zyrex who said what they were all beginning to understand. He's playing with us. A silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. The human stood a few paces away, still composed, as if the entire exchange had been nothing more than an exercise. There was no labored breathing, no sign of strain. He rolled his shoulders once, as though shaking off dust, and sighed. "You're good," he admitted. "Not the best, but good." Varthak growled, rising to his feet, rage burning in his narrowed eyes. "You dare." "Stop." Corrin's voice, calm but edged with something new. Caution. Calculation. He had seen what the others had refused to acknowledge. The human had every opportunity to kill them. Every strike had been measured, every evasion precise. This wasn't luck. This wasn't desperation. It was control. Corin's scanners flickered over the human's form again, searching for answers, for logic, for anything that made sense. And then he saw it. The DNA signature. Lines of data scrolled across his vision, and for the first time in his existence, Corin felt something close to disbelief. This man was no ordinary human. The genetic markers, the sequencing, it wasn't just enhanced, it was something beyond known science. The patterns, the deviations, they matched only one known classification, one that could not exist in a lone wanderer. Corin whispered the realization before he could stop himself. Terran Black Ops. Zyrex stiffened. Lysara's fingers tightened around her blade. Even Varthak, slow to grasp the implications, narrowed his eyes in sudden understanding. Terran Black Ops. The ghosts of a long-buried war. The nightmare whispered among elite circles. Soldiers engineered for battle, conditioned beyond the limits of any known species, capable of feats that defied logic. They had been a myth, a weapon humanity was rumored to have forged in desperation before their empire had fallen silent. If one of them was standing before them, now, alive, it meant only one thing. The bounty was a lie. The human, Daniel Rook, tilted his head slightly, watching the realization settle over them. He nodded once, as if acknowledging an unspoken truth. "You were never meant to collect this bounty," he said. "You were meant to die chasing it." The words landed heavier than any blow. For the first time in their long careers, the hunters felt the weight of a hunt turned against them. The canyon walls loomed high around them, silent witnesses to the shifting balance of power. The hunters were no longer hunting. They were standing at the edge of something far larger than themselves, and Daniel Rook was the chasm beneath their feet. Varthak's hands curled into fists, his pride still demanding violence. He was not a creature of patience or strategy. His world had taught him that strength was law. But even he hesitated now, his rage tempered by something rare. Doubt. The force of the human's blows, the precision of his strikes. Rook had done what no prey should have been able to do. Zyrex had already begun recalculating. His reptilian mind worked through probabilities at an instinctual level, trying to find an angle that would turn the situation back in their favor. The pieces didn't fit. Rook had displayed nothing but restraint, and that was the most concerning factor of all. If he had the ability to kill them and hadn't, it meant he didn't need to. Corin's red optic flickered as it scanned the human again. The data was irrefutable. A Terran Black Ops operative. A relic from a war so deeply buried in classified archives that most of the galaxy had dismissed it as legend. The Terran Empire had fallen, its systems fractured, its colonies scattered. Yet here stood the very thing that had once made humanity feared. It defied reason. Lysara had moved the least, but she was watching the most. Every breath, every twitch of muscle, every subtle shift in stance. Rook wasn't just confident. He was assessing them, allowing them time to process what he'd revealed. That meant something. It meant he still had a reason to talk. The silence stretched. "You were never meant to survive this contract," Rook said, his voice calm. "It was never about me." Corin processed the words first. A false contract. The payout had been astronomical, an amount that defied logic for a single human target. Now, the truth bared itself, a cold and ruthless deception. "This was a trap," Corin said. "Not for you. For us." Rook nodded. That bounty went out on every major mercenary network. High value, maximum risk, no details on why. That doesn't sound like a standard contract to you. Zyrex's tail flicked. He saw it now, the cruel simplicity of the scheme. Every top-tier bounty hunter in the galaxy would have scrambled for this target. And now, standing in a canyon where sensors and communications were likely being jammed, the realization settled like a stone in his gut. "No witnesses," Lysara murmured. Rook tilted his head slightly. Wouldn't be the first time the council cleaned up loose ends. Varthak's eyes burned. "You lie. We are the best. No one hunts us." "You're right," Rook said. "Not unless they're afraid of what you'll find." A sharp wind cut through the canyon, swirling dust between them. The weight of unseen forces pressed against their backs. Corin's optic flashed. How long do we have? Rook looked skyward. Minutes. The hunters moved as one. Instinct no longer pitted them against Rook, but against the unseen threat that had just become their common enemy. Zyrex activated his neural uplink, reaching for signals. Nothing. Jamming confirmed. Lysara withdrew a small device from her belt, activating a field scanner. It flickered, overloaded with interference. We're boxed in. Corin's internal systems recalculated probabilities. Orbital strike or ground team? Rook's jaw tightened. Both. Varthak snarled. Let them come. We will break them. Rook exhaled through his nose, a ghost of a smile forming. Maybe. But I don't think dying in this canyon was part of your plan. Zyrex's mind raced. They waited. Why? They wanted confirmation, Rook said. They needed to know I was here. And now they do. A distant rumble cut through the wind. Low at first, but growing. A sound that every soldier, every hunter recognized. Ships breaking atmosphere. Corin clenched his mechanical fist. Options. Rook turned, scanning the canyon walls. His mind already 5 steps ahead. 1. No one questioned him. They had already made their decision. Survival had a new shape.